Okay, so for a long time, people have been saying, do over the garden wall, do over the garden wall. Well, we've gotten halfway through them. We are at the, we just got done with Lullaby and Frogland and gotten up to that point.
This is a weird one.
A bit. It's like there's so much to talk about, and yet I don't know how to put it. It's one of the few times where it's like, I'm kind of at a loss for words, but I can do my best to sort of sum up, what I see here. Well, first of all, there's obviously going to be spoilers in this. I think anyone that watches this has probably seen it. I give it a lot of credit that it is something that I've never seen on, TV or Cartoon Network. I think it's really kind of risky to put something like this out. How many episodes? There's about 10 episodes of these 11-minute vignettes, and they do sort of tell a continuing story. It's kind of like a road trip movie where they come across different creatures and characters and stuff. It's just two kids trying to find their way home. And the best thing I can think of while watching this, it reminds me a lot of the books of like Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz. The books.
Crossed a little bit with scary stories to tell in the dark.
Yeah, it sort of has... Yeah, where Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland were very whimsical and magical, and when you read it, you sort of got like a bright, colorful thing. This is definitely much more woods and dark and shadows.
Dark kind of folktale.
Yeah, very folktale-ish, very
but folktale, not Grimm's fairy tale-ish, like kind of American. Like like more like an American folktale versus like a Grimm's kind of. Though, I mean, there do seem to be witches and beasts, but I don't get European as much out of this.
No, well, there's witches in, America, obviously. Well, quote unquote, we burned a lot.
We burned them all.
That's right.
Actually, that is a lie. We hung them.
Ah, yes.
We didn't burn witches over here. We hung those bastards.
We did it right.
That's why they didn't come back.
Yeah, that's why you don't see them anymore. Must be the reason.
It's a lie. We killed innocent people.
That's actually really sad. But anyway, it's
Thank you,
Salem. It's one of those little mini-series where it's the best way I can kind of describe it is that you remember when you're like 3 years old and you watch
every day.
You watch like a movie or even a cartoon show that's maybe a little above your age and you're not quite at the point where you comprehend everything that's going on, but you're kind of just hypnotized by it and you're watching it and you kind of assume to yourself, at some point I'll understand this. And
are you claiming this is Teletubbies for adults?
No, I mean it like watching something like Return to Oz when you're like 3 or 4 years old or something like that. Well, we grew up with that movie.
No, I know what you're saying, because that's all I can say. I'm just watching it and I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, you're just
it's just hypnotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a strangely hypnotic show. Even in episodes where, for a good 5 minutes, nothing much is going on. The episode at the school where the kid's just playing outside with the animals, and I'm just like, there's like nothing going on here, but I'm just mesmerized by this.
Most things we watch, whether they're good or bad, we usually talk a little bit through it and make remarks and stuff. Like this, we're just...
Yeah,
I mean, we're just...
We hardly said a word. We were just...
Even after it's done, usually there's like a reaction, or that was strange, that was weird. It's like, yeah. Next. I mean, it's like... And that's not a bad thing.
It's not at all. Like, we were so hypnotized by it, we just couldn't even say anything. And it's hard to know what to say even now. It just... Yeah, that's all I can compare it to, is like... There were a couple of scary stories to tell in the dark where it's just like... what the hell was it? The one with the old lady with the gypsy drum or whatever. It was some folktale about this girl who wanted a drum from some other girl, and the girl keeps like saying you have to be mean to your parents or something, and the mother's just like, don't do that, because eventually I'll be replaced by some angry mother with like a wooden tail and a glass eye or something, and like, it's this nonsensical story, and so she keeps acting bad, the daughter keeps acting bad, and eventually she gets the drum, but she returns home, and then it's just like, then she met her new mother with the wooden tail and the glass eye, and it's like, ton, that's it. It's just surreal, and you're just kind of like, well, I guess there was a moral there, but it's just bizarre, and all of these have that same thing. It's like, there's a moral, but it's just weird shit that happens. And
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Kurosawa's Dreams, if anybody's ever seen that. It's sort of
that's another good
it's
example.
these very strange individual stories where here there is a continuing story and even arguably a theme, I think very basic morals, but they sort of end on these very strange notes that aren't like, and here's the punchline, and here's the moral, here's the whatever. They're just sort of like on these really weird, we don't need to impress you, we're just telling you what happened basis. But what we're telling you happened is so strange, that should be enough, and we're just gonna let that sit with you. And I don't mind that, surprisingly. It's because it's so sucked in to its own strange world, and it looks very nice. And yeah, like I say, it's sort of one of those movies or shows you watch as a kid, and even though you're not following it, you're so intrigued and you're sucked in, and you think it's just take out the part where you grow up, you watch it years later, and it makes sense. Just take that part out and just accept the surreality of it, and it's challenging in a good way. Like, I can't say I understand everything that's going on or why certain choices are made. In fact, I'd probably argue I understand very few of the choices that are made, but they're so intriguing and so laid back and so original. This is not based on a book or a story, which really shocked me. This reads like a Victorian children's story or a collection of Victorian children's stories.
Kind of.
I mean, the animals in the school wearing the hats and outfits and stuff. I mean, that just sounds like a Wind in the Willows type thing or something.
A little bit, though. I feel like there would have been more of a... I don't want to say point. That sounds mean, but like a direction where... You know what this is? This is like Kino's journey for 7-year-olds.
If you haven't seen, you got some homework.
If you haven't
Check
seen
it out.
Kino's journey, it's a really great anime, but I get that same vibe watching this that I do from Kino's Journey. It's like, here's a random travelogue and meets a bunch of weird people, and there's a little bit of a moral to every story, and sometimes he helps the people out, or sometimes they help the people out, sometimes they don't, and you get this weird sense of the culture of everywhere they're going.
And it's a world that very much exists in its own strange reality. Like, you know, in Kino's Journey, just every land has a weird quirk or some sort of weird rule they live by. Here, it's like every creature you come across, or every place is a different kind of creature. Like, you know, one could be on a frog boat, one could be, you know, a mansion run by this crazy guy, you know, who didn't realize that his mansion was connected to another mansion, and that both people that live in the mansion think the other is a ghost. I mean, it's just these strange little kind of fables.
I think my favorite was the pumpkin one. With the pumpkin patch and the... The school one was pretty good, too. Actually, I will say this. The animation is amazing. And it's always the little details that sometimes you appreciate the most. I mean, from the beginning, I thought the animation was really good, but there was one detail that I thought was awesome. And in the school one, the school teacher goes in front of a window in the schoolhouse.
The little dust particles.
Yeah, and there's dust particles in the sunbeam. And I'm like, that is a detail that only like somebody who really is on top of their game would catch. You know, not watching it, but animating it and being like, you know, we're going to set this tone in this scene so much that there's going to be little dust particles in the sunbeam coming through the window. And that's amazing.
You know what I'm saying with, like, Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz? So, like, the book. The Wizard of Oz movie has a very clear beginning, middle, and end. Come across people, they're all going to go see the wizards. The books, they'll, like, come across just these weird rock creatures or something, and then they're on to the next thing, and it's like, or sometimes they'll have a moral, sometimes it won't, and then it's just on to the next thing. It's the same thing with Alice in Wonderland, where it's
like... They're vignettes.
Yeah, there's not exactly, like, always a point, or it's all coming around to one thing. It's just sort of like, here's some strangeness, enjoy, now we're kind of on to the next strangeness, and it's like, the world it creates is so strange, and the tone it creates is so strange, that you kind of feel it doesn't even really need sort of the traditional 3-act structure, and I like a story that can do that, which is like, we usually harp on stories that's like, you need a 3-act structure, which you usually do, but when you're so bizarre enough and clever enough that you can actually go beyond that, I really respect that kind of writing.
Okay. Honestly, each vignette, I think, has a 3-act structure.
But you know what I mean? Like,
there's a beginning, middle, end.
How do I put it? Like,
but if you're talking about as a whole narrative from beginning to end so far, no, it seems pretty random.
Yeah, like we don't even know who their parents are or anything like that.
All we
It's just
know
like-
is that he's got a crush.
Yeah, we don't even know why they were lost in the woods or why they were in the woods. They know they
The
found
Bluebird bit came up randomly, just like, and I used to be human. I love Elijah Wood's read on that. Just, really? I didn't know that. I'm pretty sure I would have remembered that. had
Did
you
I know
mentioned
that? No, I didn't know that.
No,
Like
I didn't know
even
that.
which I sort of had to remind myself too. Wait, did he know that? And then he says it as well.
Yeah.
The acting reminds me a little bit of Gravity Falls. Every time I hear Elijah Wood, I think of Dipper actually in that part.
For the first minute he was talking, I thought it was the same voice actor. as
yeah,
Dipper.
I mean it's they're
And then
very
it hit me. I'm
similar.
like, oh, it's Elijah Wood. Who it? Not only does that guy have a face made for cartoons because he looks like a hobbit with the
Yeah.
big blue eyes and but he's got a voice made for cartoons.
It's hard to looking at him in
I
real
just
life
saw,
and hearing his voice. It's hard to gather his age.
Last year I just finished up on Tron Uprising, the Disney cartoon, and he was amazing in that. Honestly, if you want another great animated series, that was better than the Tron Legacy movie. And then, of course, Disney in their infinite wisdom is just like, hey, this is really awesome. Canceled. But yeah, I was watching that, and I thought he was amazing in that, so I'm glad he's in this now. We've got John Cleese, maybe?
Yeah. Oh, that had to be Cleese.
I thought I heard. You know, we got
if it wasn't.
Christopher Lloyd as the woodsman, and did I hear James Earl Jones?
I swear I heard him too, but we didn't see him in the credits, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought
But
it was him playing the beast or whatever.
This is the same. These are the same people who did like Adventure Time, pretty much, and their credits are sort of like always clumped together. Like at the end of like an Adventure Time episode, you'd be like, "Wait, these people weren't in them," but they just sort of clumped them together. Like in general, these people are kind of here, kind of not, whatever. So maybe that was James Earl Jones. I don't know. If not, sounds a lot like him. But these people are often known for just finding unique talents that are not. They use big voice actor names as well, but they don't always like. For the main people, like they'll find sort of just various people that you've never heard of, or just are new to show business, or because I IMDb'd a lot of these people. I'm like, well, that's a newcomer. That's a newcomer. A lot of the writers, like there's a ton of writers on these. You know, and some wrote them all the way through. Others just did an episode.
It's a well written show.
Yeah, and I think part of it is just that strange variety. And I think because they created an atmosphere and an environment where you can just sort of do whatever. So if an episode wants to make sense, great. If it wants to not make sense, great. It again, very much like Adventure Time, it can kind of do that. So yeah, it's. I really enjoy it. But not like yay! I can't wait for the next one. It's sort of like this is gonna take me somewhere else. Both.
Oh no! I am totally
creatively and like.
I totally can't wait for the next one. Like when we're just like, okay, we have to stop here to do the vlog. I'm like, crap, because I just want to know where the hell this is going.
It's one of those where how do I put it? I love the Disney Sleepy Hollow. I think
It
it's
reminded
fantastic.
me
It
of
reminds
that.
me a lot of
The
that.
one at the tavern reminded me of that when they're
the
singing about the
Cliff
beast.
and
Yeah, I'm
Infinity
like,
Hollow.
we start singing that song because like this totally reminds us of Disney's Sleepy Hollow.
But it's one of those things where.
But the whole thing, like, you know, I think the other thing I really like about it is. Just like Disney's Sleepy Hollow just exudes Halloween, this fall.
I'm kicking
and
myself that I
everything.
didn't watch this during fall.
Yeah, like we're in the middle of spring now and we're watching this. I'm like, crap, I would have loved to have seen this in October or November. Like this just exudes like Halloween and fall, and everywhere they go it's spooky woods, or the leaves are turning, or there's pumpkins, or there's beasts, or it's just like Disney's Sleepy Hollow that way. You just get this feeling of like fall.
No, and what I was talking about before with like, I'm not necessarily like, I can't wait to see the next one, but I want to. It's very much like what I found, like when I was watching Lost, every time I couldn't wait for the next episode to find out what was going to happen. I was so sucked in. And then when it was all over and stuff, I don't really go back and rewatch them. Even though, yeah, the ending sucked. We all know that. But,
I'd rewatch the hell out of this.
No, I mean, but that's why I'm saying, and even, Gravity Falls I would go back and rewatch, but I'm so excited for the next one. I cannot die without knowing what the next one's going to be. Where with this one, if I didn't know, I'd be a little bit disappointed or whatever. But at the same time, I can see myself watching all of these every Halloween.
With the music and everything in this sort of late 19th century setting, I feel like it's that first few minutes of Bioshock Infinite.
It reminds me a lot
where you're
of
just
those,
wandering around and there's just this random music and you're kind of lazily just looking at everything before stuff goes to shit.
This kind of looks...
It's a lot like that. It's just got this hypnotic quality to it.
It feels like one of those little shorts that, like, in those machines where you put a penny in and you sort of put your eyes through and you see a little short play as they went and they traveled to this area, but then this thing happened and they learned a lesson and the end, almost like a silent film. But yeah, I really dig that. And are you shocked that so many people have, like, talked about it and recommended it? And it's like, as far as I know, this isn't like a gigantic hit, but it's really got this following. I'm not shocked it has a following. I'm shocked it has
not at all
as big and as fast a following as it does.
Not at all.
No?
No, because I mean we haven't seen the ending yet, but to this day we still remember Disney's Sleepy Hollow. And when you look at the let's be honest about Disney's Sleepy Hollow. That is 5 minutes of hardcore action and the rest is just some singing and dancing and not much going on. And yet we still, to this day, like, and if most kids who grew up in the 80s when they reran it on Disney Channel all the time, we still remember it. There's a reason. It's the atmosphere. The atmosphere totally makes it. I think it's the same thing with this.
No, but even that usually takes time for people to usually open up to that. And I guess I'm
not if you do it really well. I mean, it had me from Frog playing piano, like in the first 5 seconds. You had me from Frog.
But most
piano.
people, most people would see like that first episode and be like, that was weird. I mean, like, I don't hate it, I don't like it, it's just that was weird, and then, like, sort of not go back to it. But, yeah, but a lot of people seem to keep coming back to it.
Most people who like good animation and good storytelling and all of that, I think they would look at the first episode and be like, I have to know where this is going. Mm-hmm. And would keep watching it.
I wonder, when I
think it's the same thing with Disney's Alice in Wonderland. It's just like, you may not know what's going on, but you're just like, okay, what the hell is next? Like...
Well, but with Disney's Alice in Wonderland, there was definitely there were definite punchlines, there were definite jokes, which there's one or two in this. Some of the lines the bird says are very direct. This is meant to be funny. But I
love their version of swearing, by the way. Cheese and crackers.
Yeah. Jiminy Cricket. But I mean, stuff like, the boy singing about, molasses and potatoes, that's not funny. But it's just so strange, and they're so into it, and it's just so sucked up in its own little world.
But we don't.
I didn't think enough people. I didn't think as many people would get so sucked into that bizarreness without an obvious punchline, without an obvious wackiness. Even though there's strange stuff, it's not. I wouldn't say wacky.
Well, not everything has to be SpongeBob.
No. But that's what I'm saying. I'm pleasantly surprised that so many people have gotten into this.
I think it's because this sort of stuff isn't out there all the time.
No, that could be it.
It's what else is out there like this? I mean, obviously Adventure Time to some degree, but Adventure Time is brighter and more colorful.
It's wacky. It's in your face.
Gravity
it's crazy.
Falls has a definite kind of plot that's going on. Like, this is different.
It's very different. And I really like that it has caught on as much as it has. And I guess I like it because it shows that people have a little bit more patience than I guess I thought they did. This takes
like
patience.
This is more like the stuff you see coming out of Europe or Japan, or this could have been like Secret of Kells or Song of the Sea. It actually reminds me a little bit of Song of the Sea, just in some of the animation and stuff, but the sort of things that kind of just run on atmosphere and it's just sort of whimsy, but not like the whimsy. It's like just sort of a natural, whimsical kind of thing going on. Like, it runs on cute, and it doesn't seem insanely manufactured. I could watch that kid with the stupid teapot on his head singing all day, because it doesn't feel forced somehow. It's just like he's doing what he does. And there's not a lot of that out there. Everything either right now has to have a plot, or if it doesn't, it's too zany and over the top, or too ironic, or
trying too hard.
There's kind of a sense of just trying too hard. Like, you're right, there's no patience to it. So this is the rarity, and I think people respond to it because they're just like, yes, I want this, I crave this, I want more of this. It's the same reason why I travel an hour and 10 minutes into downtown on the north side of Chicago to see Song of the Sea, because I'm like, nobody's playing it out here, and I'm like, I want something freaking like that. You know, yeah, there's plenty of stuff that got released here that I enjoyed, you know, like the Lego Movie and stuff, but I want something that's just patient and weird and, you know.
I think you nailed it. So we'll get back to you when we finish up the rest of these, but it's quite intriguing.
Watch it.
Yeah, it'll definitely give you something you haven't seen before, and it's worth seeing. So
that sounded dirty. It'll definitely give you something you haven't seen before.
and it's worth seeing.
No, we just went dark.
Yeah, sorry.
You know, for kids. Well, that was weird.
Yeah, we just finished Over the Garden Wall, and now it makes sense.
I know, right?
I mean, I was so confused before, but then when you get to that ending, the last few episodes, it's like, got it, nailed it.
It's all about the lies.
Yep. Beautiful lies. Yeah, we have no idea what that was about.
Lies.
I liked it. I did enjoy
I loved it. I want this. I need to own it. We were watching it on Amazon, but
we need this on like Blu-ray.
I need it. Yeah, I need a copy of this.
Yeah.
Bad.
So we should talk about where it goes. They of course come across other strange misadventures and stuff, and then we get the Shyamalan twist. It was during current times.
No.
Kind of, sort of, maybe in
that
the
looked
70s
like the
or 80s.
70s.
Yeah.
I don't even think that looked like the 80s. That looked like the 70s.
But you know what
to
I
me.
mean? Not in like whatever witch burning times or whatever they were kind of indicating it took place in.
They did more than just burn witches back then, okay?
No, they didn't.
They imprisoned debtors.
Okay, there's that. But yeah, so these two kids, they go and I'm gonna sneeze here, so you take over.
So the two kids go and find an old abandoned shack. There seems to be a ton of these around in this world.
I never came. Okay.
And they meet up with this sort of scullery wench, or I don't know, what would you say, like milkmaid type girl who's like, hey, look out, you can't be in here, otherwise Auntie Whispers will get you.
Well, which great name. You're immediately like, ooh, I like that name.
Yeah, the second she said Auntie Whispers, I was just like, ooh. I was like, that just sounds bad. And so, yeah, they hide in a basket of turtles. Black turtles. And then Auntie Whispers comes in looking a hell of a lot like...
Spirited Away.
Yeah, what was it? Baba Yaga? Or why am I blanking on her name?
Something Baba.
Yubaba.
Yubaba.
Yeah, from Spirited Away. And, through a comedy of errors, basically... They tried to trick Yubaba, lock themselves in a room with the milkmaid, and then this whole time Yubaba's been ringing this bell. I should say Auntie Whisper's been ringing this bell and tells the girl, the bell commands you. I'm wondering if she's like Pacifica Northwest
yeah, that's the
or
first thing
something.
I thought too.
And so they lock themselves away, and Yubaba's just like, I don't have the bell, and the kids are like, haha, so we've saved her, and he's like, no, you don't get it. She's out of her mind! She's gonna kill you! And the next thing you know, it's shitting bricks time. Cause, like, the girl just... I can't even just big, nasty teeth and big eyes, and it was scary. It was very scary.
If we're gonna go through every, because we watched, 4 of these, if everyone's gonna be... I was just gonna say, 3 sentences of, the last couple episodes. You're like...
You had the fucking sneeze, okay?
No, it didn't come, so...
Fine, then you tell the fucking story.
Okay, so... Whatever, they get her back to normal. Ish, I guess they banished the spirit away with the bell, which you're wondering why the auntie didn't do that. But,
I think the auntie was enjoying having a servant.
Probably, but then they make her kind of good at the end. That was a little confusing. I'll imagine something confusing in this special. But then they go and, the brother is goofing off too much, and he goes into his dreamland, and he comes across the Beast, and the Beast wants to take him and turn him into this kind of wood that keeps the
lantern.
Yeah, the lantern lit that the woodsman has had. And we find out that apparently the spirit of his daughter is in the lantern, but then it's discovered that actually the beast needs the lantern lit so that he can stay alive, and that the spirit of the daughter is probably never even in there.
And there's a flashback that you forgot to mention, you ass.
Well, I'm just doing the Cliff Note version here. And we find out...
Cliff Notes?
Yes.
This isn't even a small garden wall.
And we go to... but we also find out that Wirt and his brother, they were... Who confusingly says, it's you and your dad. Which, stepbrothers, maybe? I found that line kind of confusing, too. So we find out that it's...
Maybe it's like whenever our parents were upset at us, and all of a sudden it became, you know what your son did?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But I don't think
when you're in trouble, it's when parents, when their kids are in trouble, it's never, you know what our son did. It's, you know what your son did? You know what your daughter did? Suddenly, the person talking completely disowns.
Yeah, well, clearly got this from you. So he's trying to impress this girl with this cassette, and then he gets really embarrassed and doesn't want her to hear it. And then they fall into pretty much this lake. And we were both thinking the same thing. So, is this all purgatory? Are they dead? Is this the afterlife? But then they defeat the beast, or the woodsman, I should say, defeats the beast by blowing out the lantern.
They wake up.
They get the bird... he gets the bird the scissors so that they can be turned back to normal. And yeah, then they wake up and he gets along with the girl, and then it's like, oh, and here's what happened to all the other over the garden wall characters, and again,
and the whole time the frog says it's beautiful lies, so they're probably dead. I'm only saying they're in the river.
Maybe. I mean, you see,
or they were hit by the train in the flashback.
That was kind of my thought. Yeah, that was my first thought. But they wake up, in the river too. So it's like maybe it was a dream. I don't know. And it just kind of stops. And even there is and they all live happily after everything's good, blah blah blah. But over the garden wall, even he's like, yeah, you don't really care about it. You know the drill. The one thing, I'm not gonna act like I totally understand all this or what it's initially trying to do. I mean, I enjoy it a great deal.
What's to understand? It's a bunch of folk tales.
No, what I'm saying is that the one thing I didn't get into, and you kind of said too, I don't know if I liked them being in a more contemporary time, being in the 70s or 80s or wherever they were.
I didn't hate it. I'm just not sure. After that episode, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I needed it.
Yeah, why was it needed?
I mean, the explanations were cute for why they have the costumes on and why he's got the candy in his pocket.
I do love, I'm an elephant! I mean, that was great.
But yeah, I don't know.
I'm trying to think of the grand
I don't know if it was
story.
Needed.
Yeah. Me, that wasn't... You were saying that, I guess the guy that put this together wanted to be even darker, and then they had him lighten it up
I guess the story goes it was supposed to be kind of like a big Halloween special, but he didn't quite have a full narrative, and then as production went along, how things change as, you're working out the kinks, and, I guess it became a little more lighthearted, a little more comedic, but he still wanted scary moments. There were scary moments. That whole bit with the crazy milkmaid and her being possessed, and I was like, wow, if I were a little kid, I'd be shitting bricks right now. I would just, ugh. So, but yeah, I get... some people out there are just like, well, it's Dante's Inferno... And there's nods to Dante's Inferno,
but
it's not just it's Dante's Inferno.
It's not like Oh Brother Where Art Thou, where it's that's obviously the Odyssey, scene for scene.
It's got a few allusions to Dante's Inferno. They start off lost in the woods. There is a Beatrice, but Beatrice and Virgil in Dante's Inferno.
They're the only main characters. So, right?
But I guess,
brother.
But I guess Beatrice being the guide is kind of like that. I guess there is a ferry if you want to go with the steamboat with the frogs, and there is kind of a frozen lake not a frozen lake, but things are cold at the end.
Well, I was gonna say there's a frozen lake in the story. Does he defeat the devil in Dante's Inferno? I don't remember that.
I don't think he did. I thought he climbed off the devil and then. There was a river of forgetfulness or something, and then he emerged from the river, and it's Easter and God and yay and that.
That does kind of sound like this ending too, though, emerging from, the lake.
Emerging from the lake, but in the beginning of Dante's Inferno, there was like a 3 beast thing, and people were like, oh, it's like the beast, but in this one, the beast is also like kind of Lucifer. Like, is it even Lucifer? And you don't really kill Lucifer, at least I don't remember in Dante's Inferno, and
clearly we need to read
I don't
Dante's
think
Inferno again.
I don't think any of these really represent hardcore like the circles of hell either. They seem like they seem like American folktale vignettes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not saying it's not
nods.
I'm sure he's got nods to Dante's Inferno, but it's not like, oh, it's Dante's Inferno. No, there's like more to it than that.
Yeah, the one that and it's so bizarre, this is the one I like the most. The one out of all of them that I liked the most was the one that you could argue was the biggest waste of time, was when he was dreaming, and it's like the old 1920s or even 10s cartoons.
The care they took in recreating that old school United Artists sort of like early 30s like kind of animation.
Especially the backgrounds.
That was amazing.
But what I liked about that episode too is that a lot of it, like I said, kind of like Wizard of Oz and Where the Wild Things Are, it seemed very much to let like kind of the emotions of a scene guide the way, not really the logic. And that one seemed the most like that, to suddenly have like, here's a scary thing coming, but then like, oh, now the beautiful Lady of the Clouds comes, but only you can go, not the brother is being taken. But it just seems like sort of like the ups and downs of like a kid's emotions that can just change on a whim sort of directed that episode, and I really like that. I sort of like going through those just spontaneous like emotional changes.
It just was so much like those old cartoons, like.
Well, that's what those cartoons were like too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we used to watch them. They used to rerun them on like Nickelodeon and stuff, and kids networks back in the early '80s, and yeah, it was like kind of nostalgic just seeing that style of animation again. I haven't seen that like. Spoof of that done so well in a long time.
Yeah, well, especially like I said, something about like the way the backgrounds were, and they were a little they were a little shadowy, but a little grainy too. And there's always something that's like, even though they're bright and colorful and everything,
the loose animation and the sort of repetitive quality when he's jumping over the little the holes in the clouds, and the big bad cloud going there, the thunderstorm. It just. All you needed was kind of like the Popeye voice attached. I'm gonna go get you.
Well, that's kind of what the cloud thing sounded like too, just a deeper version.
Like
of that.
Bluto or.
But I think too, there's something about those old cartoons. I sort of got it here too, which I really liked. Is that even though yes, they're bright and colorful and everything's dancing and stuff, there's kind of a creep value to them as well.
Oh yeah.
Especially like because a lot of them back then,
they all
didn't
look like
have enough light overexposing it and stuff like that.
They all look like Campbell Soup kids. It's weird.
Yeah, but like, I mean, it just something about like I said, they were more led by the emotion, like the bad guys are going to be really
those old
bad.
Cartoons all had a nightmare fuel aspect to it. In fact, most American folk art, which this whole show is picking from pieces of American folk art over the past like 150 years, have a creep factor to it. If you've ever seen old Halloween costumes,
oh yeah,
you have not seen terror. To like go look up vintage Halloween costumes from like the 30s and 40s.
They're just uncomfortable.
Yeah, they all look like something out of the fucking Purge or something. Like it's you just look at them, you're just like, wow, that is not the last thing I want to see before I die.
So yeah, I mean, I guess. No part of me was expecting like any kind of explanation about what this all is or where it was leading to or anything like that. So, but like I said, something about when they went to the 70s, the more contemporary time, I guess I felt like, oh, now we're kind of in a normal cartoon. Yeah, there's weird things, but it's like, it's kind of just, oh, the boy wants to impress the girl, and oh, is the girl gonna find out? And then at the end, oh, you're okay, and oh, they are gonna get along. And something I didn't hate it, but I was like, I did not feel that was needed.
Yeah, but I did love the commentary on how Halloween used to be more fun. Like, did you notice that the cops are just like, hey, what are you doing there, kids? Ah, just kidding.
Yeah.
Like, there's this sense of, like, nobody gives a shit, whereas nowadays, like,
Hey,
you have...
no running! Ah, just kidding. Happy Halloween!
Like, nowadays, you have to have, like, parental escorts to leave the house. Like, I'm like, how did we survive in the 80s? Like, it's like Halloween nowadays is, like, done by, like, 4 p.m. I'm like, I remember trick-or-treating at night.
Well, remember they did, like, they made up that story about, like, you know, whatever, the guys that put, like, razor blades in the candy, and, like, there's never been a report of that. So it's like, and they had some bullshit back then, too. But I know you're talking about where it's like, you gotta trick-or-treat whatever at 4 or 5 o'clock or 3, and I'm like, why? That's not
Halloween.
That's
All
not
Hallows
Halloween.
Eve, not All Hallows early afternoon.
Yeah.
The fuck.
So no, I like that too.
Raising our children like veal.
But the whole special I really like. Like I said, the only thing I couldn't get into, I didn't hate, I just couldn't get into it, was the more contemporary time stuff.
I liked it well enough because the biggest mistake, like the biggest mistake would have been setting it 2015 or 14 or like post millennium. By setting it in the 70s, you still kind of had a feeling like this is still sort of out of place, out of time. Like, I couldn't quite pinpoint it. I'm like, all right, there's a tape recorder there. It says Space Battle. Like, I'm guessing mid to late 70s, like Star Wars-ish, but at first I thought maybe it was the 60s, and I'm like, nah, it looks like 70s. So, like, it still has
The
this
girl
kind
in
of
the bunny
feeling.
outfit kind of had like a 70s or 60s like dress
Yeah.
on or something like that. So
I'm
so it
thinking
could be.
70s. If that's supposed to be kind of Star Wars in like 76 or something, like
Yeah.
when did Star Wars come out? Was that 75 or 77? I don't know, but mid to late 70s.
But yeah, so it's one of those things. It wasn't like, oh, this ruined it, but it was the one thing where I was like, well, this is. Now we're in a normal cartoon, like a normal cartoon you would see anywhere on Cartoon Network, which Cartoon Network is still strange, and they show a lot of weird stuff, so it's not like
But the
that,
irony of it is, we're complaining that it looks like any other normal show on Cartoon Network. I guess that's just a statement that we felt this show really upped Cartoon Network's game exponentially. On a network that I think still does pretty well. That's not a slam against Cartoon Network. I'm just like, they've been doing well, and now the bar just again has been so raised.
Well, it was such a... This was just so fascinating. Like I said, I've never really seen anything quite like this. There's definitely hints of, like, you know, a kind of Adventure Time and stuff like that, but it's like, I've never seen anything quite this original. And it's such a wonderful breath of fresh air that they would throw, you know, this money at this very bizarre story with this bizarre layout, and I mean, just these little vignettes, and what was it, over 5 nights or something like that. And there's a little bit of a continuing story, but not really. Like, I was telling him when, during that scene with the dream sequence and stuff like that, I said, you know, if I was an animator on this, I would have no idea if this was good.
Particularly the first couple minutes of that scene with the little angels wandering around and we represent the cloud people.
Okay, if that's what you want,
Like,
man. And
yeah,
you're paying
I
me,
would have
but
been sitting there. I'm like,
I have
well,
no
I want
idea
a
what this-
paycheck, but man, this could be Batman and Robin I'm working at. I have no freaking idea.
Yeah.
Like, this looks crazy.
But at the same time, I do kind of like that it is a special where it is hard to pinpoint exactly what it is or what you clarify it as. Like, if I was just tell someone, like, in a sentence what it is, it'd be tricky. Not that it can't be done, but it would be difficult to do. You can't just say, oh, it's weird and bizarre. It's like, well, no, something like Ren Stimpy's weird and bizarre, or Adventure Time or something. It's like, it's like there's something else
about a
to
journey.
it.
It's like a journey through American folklore. It's like Washington Irving, like Rip Van Winkle, Sleepy Hollow. It feels
the folklore especially.
It feels
yeah.
like that.
Oh.
With really, you didn't turn your cell phone off. You
Okay.
sneeze. You have
I
to
did
answer
not
your phone.
sneeze.
You did
Hell,
not
that's what I make
sneeze. You
up for
couldn't
with the
even
ringing.
sneeze right.
No, true.
But yeah, like Washington Irving stories. You know, as I was mentioning last, when Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, those old American folklore tales that were spooky and mixed with, you know, like nods to Dante's Inferno and
Yeah,
stuff.
or
but-
Alice in Wonderland and all that stuff. Yeah, and even like the old 20s cartoon. Just anything kind of old. You know, even the 70s somehow got in there, I guess.
Yeah, and I will say, a lot of it seems to be also kind of based on, like, faith and, you know, because he loses hope and then the brother tries to save him and then the older brother comes in and tries to save him and then there's, like, the kid's souls keep the lantern alive and, like, I don't know. I guess if you want to make the argument, it's an allegory for the soul, like Dante's Inferno, you could.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you can't make, like, allegories or connections to something or, like, find something deeper. You totally can.
There's aspects of like Dante's Inferno and other things there. I'm just not sure if that was the reason for it existing. Like,
if anything, I like a story more that isn't just, this is just blank. You know, I like where it's like, it's elements of this, elements of that, sort of come together and create something kind of new that we haven't seen.
Yeah, when people
so I
say
really
like,
that.
oh, I'm writing a Valentine to like Dante's Inferno, that's just Hollywood code word for rip-off. This seems more than that. You know, this seems like something where just like, I have a whole bunch of ideas and vaguely like Dante's Inferno. Like, that, there's a difference there.
Very, very vaguely, yeah. You know, I still wouldn't call this like Dante's Inferno for kids. I mean,
No.
it doesn't sound right. It's just, it's more than that. There's so many
I wouldn't have
other
recognized
aspects
it.
of
I'm like, okay, well, these aren't pits of hell. Like, everybody seems to get a happy ending at the end. I mean, it's really far removed in a lot of ways. It's just there's little nods to it.
Yeah, so I really liked it. I liked that I can't quite pinpoint what it is or how to describe it or any of that stuff, but I like how it kept me intrigued the whole time. It wasn't like, and joke, this is supposed to make you laugh, or it's supposed to make you think. It's just sort of this weird, like, just escape of subconsciousness, you know, just like, hey, you know, just when you're kind of half awake, half asleep, and, you know, this is the kind of story that we're going to tell. It's like while you're half awake, half asleep.
You know what? I know how to describe it. It's like myths. Beautiful lies.
Beautiful lies. So yeah, any final thoughts on it?
I'd say I want a sequel series, but I don't know how you go back. So, I just thought it was amazing, and I want the soundtrack too.
Yeah, so do I. I really like the music disc. I wouldn't say a sequel. I do like... Yeah, or maybe like what they did with Avatar, like maybe like a spin-off or something. No, you know, I don't even want that. I just want the same people to do something different, because this was different and it was great, and I love to see what they do. You know, like, you know, the Animaniacs to Tiny Toons. That's what I like. You know, something's like, hey, this isn't a sequel,
you
but
would
it's
recognize,
the same people.
you would recognize it as being the same people, even though it's kind of different.
Yeah. So, good stuff, and we'll see you next time. Watch it. Beautiful lies.
Beautiful.
Led through the mist by the milk light of moon, all that was lost is revealed. Our long bygone burdens, mere echoes of the spring. But where have we come, and where shall we end? If dreams can't come true, then why not pretend? How the gentle wind beckons through the leaves as autumn colors fall, and sing in a swirl of golden memories the loveliest lies.